There's a ground stoppage at RDU International. So if this is your route to RDU International, you will get to the airport. But just keep in mind that you would not be taking off anytime soon. I think Michelle said maybe the earliest at 11:30. This is another route into RDU International this morning, 540 and Aviation Parkway. We also want to check those drive times to RDU International from 40. Very little to no delays getting to the airport. We will continue to monitor these routes into RDU International as we continue to monitor that situation at RDU International.
All right, Ken, thank you. We'll go back to Monica Casey right now, who is out there at the airport giving us this live view here. Monica, I understand you're talking with someone there?
Yeah, Renee, that's right. We're talking with an employee here from RDU, and I just want to recap, Kurt, what you were just telling us about this morning. You mentioned you did not see this happen, but tell me a little bit about when things started getting different here at RDU.
Absolutely. Like I said, we had a flight coming in around 10:15. It was delayed, and then, like I said, come to find out, they're not letting anything in or out, and that was the reason, because of the plane incident.
Did you see any flame or smoke at the scene?
No, I didn't see any flame or smoke.
And you mentioned you've worked here for some months. Have you ever seen anything like this?
Never ever. Never ever. And I was asking some people around here, had they seen anything like it? They've never seen anything like it either.
How are you feeling right now?
I feel bad for the people that are on board. That's about it.
I'm really sorry. We were late to this. Can you just go back and talk about what you saw? I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good. I didn't see anything. I seen the aftermath like you guys, but I was letting her know that basically our routine schedule of the plane the routine schedule was off. Basically, I looked on my phone because I have an app to tell when the flights are coming in, and basically it said that it was delayed, and then come to find out this is why it's delayed. So that's pretty much all I know.
What is your role here at the airport, and how has this kind of impacted the day-to-day schedule today?
I pretty much work on the ramp. I guide the planes in and out, and as you can see, like right now, there's no planes coming in and out, so I'm not gonna say I'm chilling, but I definitely don't have any work to do.
Do you see for how long this might last? We've seen that this has been closed off for about an hour at least, but do you think that it's probably going to last a bit longer than that?
I would think so.
Kurt, can you tell us a little bit? You mentioned, I know you said you didn't see or hear anything. The people that you've been speaking with, your coworkers, did anyone tell you about what they heard or saw here?
No, honestly, they're all down that way, and I'm just nosy, so I walked up. I'm gonna be honest. So yeah.
And what's the general mood of the employees here right now? Were they surprised?
Just concerned and just wanting to know what was actually going on.
Are you able to give us what's going on inside Terminal 1 right now? Are people just, for those who were awaiting for flights, are things at a pause inside there?
I don't know. I can only speak for the employers or the employees. I haven't been to where the passengers or the customers are.
As far as the employees, have you guys been given any instruction as to what to do at this point, or did they say to just stand by until?
It's just delayed. We just know it's delayed. That's all. That's it. That's all.
When does your shift run until? Are you leaving here soon?
No, I'll be here until 5, I believe. Yeah.
Well, Kurt, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Glad you're doing well.
No problem.
Renee, Jeff, we're going to send it back to you all in the studio. You just heard that RDU employee telling us he didn't see or hear this happen. He came over here to see what was going on, and obviously a scary situation here. One last look over here at the plane over on the tarmac. You can see I mentioned about 5-10 minutes ago we were seeing some of the response here start to dissipate a bit. It is now an even smaller scene. There were 3 of those neon trucks out here. Those are all gone. The police presence has kind of gathered here together in a clump over here on the side of the plane. We're also seeing fewer people out walking over here on the runway right now.
It's certainly sort of an eerie feeling. Also, Monica Casey live out there, Terminal 1, the secondary runway there. Thanks for that update. Eerie feeling hearing from that ramp worker saying, we're waiting for this plane. I'm assigned to this ramp. I'm waiting for it to come in. It's delayed, and then you find out why.
Such an unusual thing to happen while you're on the job, eerie for the people who are waiting to travel and for those folks who are there working the normal operations for RDU. And this is anything but normal to see this small plane crash there on the secondary runway. And if you're just joining us here on WRAL, we've been providing you live coverage on this small plane crash at RDU International that we're learning happened around 10:10 this morning. And as we take that close-up view of that plane, you can see the tail number on that small plane, N228CH, and we've learned that it's registered to Medical Air Incorporated and that it flew from Wilmington International Airport.
Yeah, it was a round trip this morning that left from RDU International Airport, landed in Wilmington at 7:21 this morning, turned around and flew right back because at 10:08 there it was registered as landing in RDU, but this is the result of how it landed there. Certainly that crash landing, fixed wing, single engine plane with those injuries there to those two people on board.
And as we mentioned, it's registered to Medical Air Incorporated, run by UNC Air Operations, hence that UNC logo that you see on there. We looked on their website and it says the service typically flies 5 to 7 flights a day, and it carries medical faculty and or residents to Wilmington to see patients. And we've been looking at the itinerary for this plane. Started out at RDU, flew to Wilmington this morning, and then flew from Wilmington on the way to RDU, and at 10:10, that crash there in the runway.
It certainly makes it a little more intriguing to find out exactly who was on that plane, knowing that it has those local ties and that it is typically used on a day-to-day basis to get potentially doctors to go see patients in different areas. So Michelle McConaughey live in the WRAL Live Center right now with another update for us. Michelle.
Yeah, guys, we just heard from UNC Health. They did release a statement to us saying that the plane was carrying a physician and a pilot. They say right now that both are being taken to the hospital. Here is the statement. UNC Health has learned that one of its UNC Air Operations medical planes crashed this morning at RDU. The plane was carrying one physician and the pilot. Both have been taken to the hospital. We are working to gather more information. So that just in to our newsroom from UNC Health. They're releasing a statement again, the plane carrying one physician and the pilot. So as soon as we get any more information about their conditions, we will be sure to update you. We also want to quickly update you on the delays still climbing. I was just here 5 minutes ago saying there were 40 delays. That has since climbed to 55 delays. No planes flying in or out of the airspace. I know that FlightAware was saying that it would be at least 11:30 until planes were able to take off from airports to come into RDU. That has not been updated, and that's just a couple of minutes from now. But I do find it kind of hard to believe that that's going to be the case because this is still such an active scene. So we will continue to watch that here in the Live Center and bring you any updates.
No doubt, I have a feeling that delay will be extended. Michelle, thank you. And with that new tidbit of information on that plane from UNC stating that it was a medical plane carrying the pilot and a physician there on board when it crashed.
And we see where that crash is on the left side of your screen here. This is a live look at what's happening there. And it's not so much that they have to clean up the whole area there because there's investigation that's going to have to take place, but they will need to get the emergency vehicles out of there. Even though this is a secondary runway, they'll have to have significant progress there in moving some folks around before they can open up some of those lanes of travel for those aircraft that are there.
Yeah, as that process unfolds, of course, the passengers are in a waiting pattern, and we've been telling you how there are no flights coming in and out of RDU at this moment. We've also learned that one of our reporters, WRAL's Carly Haynes, she was supposed to fly into RDU from New York, and her flight has been diverted to Richmond. One of several flights that had been diverted that were in the air when this happened and then diverted to a different airport as they await, resolution of this emergency situation.
Sean Gallagher is out there right near Terminal 2 and has a passenger there to give us kind of a perspective of what folks are dealing with right now. Sean, what are you finding out from people there?
Yeah, Zach Renee, the big board here behind me has a lot of yellow on it, going from on time to delayed. That's both for the arrivals and the departures. And we met up with Madeline here, who was on her way out of Raleigh. You're headed to Peru for a wedding. I mean, when did you find out that you were going to be delayed?
Probably about 10 minutes ago, as I was pulling into the airport.
Yeah. And for you, I mean, you're going out of the country, so you have a connecting flight. How much time did they give you between those flights? Are you going to miss that one?
So I only have an hour in between my flight to Atlanta and then I go to Peru. So they delayed it by 40 minutes, and I'm not really sure I'm going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, you gave yourself a good amount of time to make the flight here, but, what's going through your mind right now?
Well, I'm supposed to meet up with my family in Atlanta, so I'm kind of nervous that I'm going to get put on a different plane, and then I'm going to have to figure out how to get to my hotel by myself in Peru. So, yeah, it's probably my biggest concern.
And, delays happen, I know that, but, when your friend told you that it was because of a small plane crash, what did you think about that?
Well, I freaked out because, she just texted and said there was a plane crash at RDU, and I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. And then I was like, I didn't even think about it affecting my flight, and I was scared that people were like hurt, and it was a huge thing. But now I'm more scared about my flight, to be honest.
Yeah. What do you do if you miss that flight?
I don't know. I'm going to try and figure it out when I get there, I guess. Yeah.
Madeline, I appreciate you taking some time for me. Yeah, very nice to meet you. Best of luck with your travels. But there's a lot of people that are waiting in line to, get their tickets and go through TSA. A lot of them likely going to be waiting a long time in the terminal as they wait for these flights to get back online, guys.
All right, Sean, thanks a lot for that. And we have crews that are on their way, that are stationed there, that are being moved. They're about the only things that are in motion there is that this investigation continues, and it's moved some of our crews. We just heard from Monica Casey. They're very close to that fence, very close to what's happening there, but that whole area is being rounded up, and they had to leave.
And as we stay on the air with you, we are getting a lot of new information here. Just within the last 10 minutes, we've learned that what you're looking at there, that is a UNC Health medical plane that crashed at RDU earlier this morning around 10:15. We've learned that there are two people on board. It was a physician and the pilot. And we've just heard from UNC Health spokesperson that both have been taken to the hospital. And FlightAware shows that the plane took off from Wilmington International Airport this morning and then crashed on that secondary runway. We've also learned that the plane started from RDU even earlier this morning, flew out to Wilmington, and then was making that return trip back to RDU when it landed here in this airfield. As a result, we have dozens of delayed flights there at RDU. No air activity happening right now as this investigation is ongoing, and we're seeing some of those investigators there at the debris, the wreckage of the plane, checking out the plane right now.
The UNC Health medical plane typically makes 5 to 7 trips a day. So it's very active, very busy, and it was in the midst of one of those, Renee, as you mentioned, left and landed in Wilmington from RDU at 7:21 this morning, and then pretty quickly would have had to make the turnaround. They fly doctors down there to see patients, and then back it went. It's technically listed as landing at RDU at 10:08. But you see this live picture here from on top of the parking garage. Now we get a good view of what is happening there. That fixed-wing single-engine plane crashed in a grassy area there right between two secondary runways. An emergency crash landing there for sure.
Such an unusual situation causing a big travel impact for people at RDU. Typically, a lot of the delays and cancellations are because of weather or weather in other states, storm systems moving through, and seeing all those delays. We're not hearing of any cancellations, mostly delays here at RDU, but this is all because of that small plane that crashed, the UNC Health medical plane with a physician and the pilot on board. We do not know yet the extent of their injuries. We do know that they've been taken to the hospital.
Yeah, that number of delays has ramped up as well because it started out with a handful, went to a dozen, to a couple dozen, now up over 40. And we expect that's going to snowball with the number of flights that come in and out of there, certainly. And even though it landed closer to Terminal 1 and this secondary runway here, Terminal 2, with the bulk of the flights that head out there, is also in a holding pattern, incoming and outbound.
And as we've been on the air this morning, initially it was 11:15 as kind of a timeline as to when perhaps flights would resume, then was moved to 11:30. Here we are at 11:34, and still no movement with those planes as those investigators continue to look at the debris there in the wreckage and to find out why this plane crashed there the way they did, as we work to find out the condition of those folks on board. But as we zoom out there to give you a look at exactly a wider perspective of this airfield, the secondary runway that is very close to Terminal 1, which is the terminal where those of you who fly Southwest a lot, you're familiar with that, and farther away from the main terminal, which is known as Terminal 2. But they're on that secondary runway, and as soon as that happened, the emergency response of the fire trucks and ambulance went there on the scene, and our crews got there quickly as well.
There's certainly a larger presence earlier on this and a closer in presence to that actual plane. This is as close as we've seen anybody. These two firefighters here, very close to that plane wreckage right there. It's as close as we've seen anyone to it since we came on the air just before 11 o'clock this morning. And that tells me that the medical response was there quickly, and those people were taken to the hospital, which has been confirmed by UNC Health, that it was one of their doctors and the pilot of the plane that were on there making a round trip to Wilmington from RDU. So now taken to the hospital to be treated for their injuries.
And that plane just on that grassy field there and not on a particular runway, though I would imagine the runways nearby will be closed for some time as they investigate. But RDU has many other runways that they will soon open up once they get the clearance to do so. But that could still be some time. Our photographer, Jamie Munden, giving us this wider view of where this plane is in that airfield, and then kind of showing you as he spins around here, that being Terminal 1 right there. And that parking lot very full. As you imagine, this is a busy travel time for RDU. It has been. The RDU airport has been setting records for travel so far this year and gearing up for the summer travel season. And passengers there waiting to get on a flight, just waiting to hear word on when that might be, but knowing about this emergency situation and waiting to learn details about this.
While we have this shot pushed in as close as we can get to that plane wreckage right there, we have an aviation expert on the line right now. Jim Kraus is with us now. Mr. Kraus, thank you so much for joining us. I want to know if you're watching our signal here, you can see this plane. Is there anything that you can gather from the wreckage that you see here right now that might give an idea as to what happened?
It's very early, and we can't get close enough to really see much. But what I can tell you initially is it looks like some sort of breakage or malfunction or just error in operation shortly after landing. In other words, it looks like the aircraft did not come out of the sky and impact the ground catastrophically. It looks like it touched down. It looks like it's on the end of the approach end of the runway, and then perhaps something happened immediately after touchdown, perhaps a blown tire, a faulty landing gear, some sort of landing gear collapse, or some other sort of perhaps engine malfunction that caused the aircraft to leave the runway surface and go over into the runway grassy area.
So you can tell perhaps just from that wreckage that the plane may have touched down, but then there was an issue and then it crashed onto that grassy field?
That would be my basically speculation at this point, although I can't see any tire tracks or any indication that it ran off the runway. Perhaps it bounced off the runway and impacted down. The impact damage looks like there was a vertical component because of the collapse of the partial collapse of the fuselage downward, but I can't tell. That could have been just due to torque gyrations as the aircraft left the runway. But it looks like to me the aircraft landed and then left the runway at some point in time. That's a better indication there. That shows some vertical damage with the horizontal stabilizer breaking off or breaking downward. But the aircraft is in relatively good condition for an aircraft accident. They often don't look that good after one of these tragedies.
Yeah, there's some wing damage there. We're looking at our Sky 5 view from above here. Now, I don't know if that gives you any other indication, but damage to both wings and all. It doesn't appear that this thing, you know, as you say, maybe it touched down and then the problems happened, but it didn't cartwheel and flip all, you know, end over end or anything like that. But that's significant damage to both the wings, front end, the side there. The extrication that we had heard, Mr. Krause, it looks like it happened right out of the passenger entry and exit there. Would you say that?
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is everything shows, at least initially, I can't see it up close, of course, a downward component. The engine broke off and went down. It didn't go forward from the aircraft, which indicates a pretty strong vertical component, the way the wings are flattened and the way the horizontal stabilizer, the tail section, has collapsed downward. Looks like there's a fairly substantial downward component to this impact with the ground.
And Jim, if the pilot was having some kind of issue, the pilot would have radio traffic control or air traffic control. What kind of communication may have been sent in the minutes prior to that emergency landing and crash?
Well, first of all, the first thing you want to do is fly the aircraft. Talking is the last thing you want to do because talking isn't going to help you. Flying the aircraft is what's going to prevent the worst of possibilities. So I don't know that there would have been any communication. Also, there's no indication to me that there was an emergency prior to landing. I mean, we'll figure that out from the air traffic control communications, but there may not have been a pre-landing, pre-impact emergency. Might have been a normal landing and then something happened immediately upon landing, but I don't know.
So based on your expertise, the problems may have started after the landing at RDU.
It could have, and I don't know what that non-grassy area to the left front of the aircraft is. I don't know if that's impact marks. I don't know if that's some sort of lack of vegetation due to the rain. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's an impact mark or what, but right now it looks like some sort of substantial downward force on this aircraft. Again, it could have hit, it could have bounced, it could have come in and just plopped down where it is now. I can't tell because I can't see if there were any tire marks or landing gear marks leading off the runway.
If there's no prior notice and the landing gear is down and they're coming in for that landing and a blown tire or broken landing gear at that point, is there any way to simulate that, any way to practice that? How hard would it be to control an aircraft at that point?
Extremely hard, and there's no real way to practice that at that point. Although, as I continue to look at the wreckage, there does not appear to be much of a horizontal component to the damage. I would think if you had a sort of hit the run or land on the runway and then exit the runway, you would see some more sideward or horizontal damage signatures, which I don't see on this aircraft right now. So right now it's still more or less a mystery as to what exactly happened, except, as I said, not meaning to repeat myself, the vertical component is fairly strong from what I'm seeing now.
And Jim, with your experience flying planes, what can you tell us as far as when you're trying to land a small plane like this? What are some of the potential problems that can happen once you hit the runway or once you're landing?
Hopefully none, but you could have a tire failure, you could have a landing gear failure, you could have some sort of an overspeed engine failure that creates torque, which pulls the aircraft to one side or the other. You could have a rudder failure. I don't know if this aircraft has landing gear steering, but you could have some sort of a rudder control failure that prevents you from keeping the aircraft aligned on the runway. Those are the things that come to mind right away. Some sort of prop governor failure where the propeller, if it's equipped on this aircraft, goes into some sort of a configuration that was not anticipated and pulls the aircraft off the runway. But generally speaking, that's the list that I can think of immediately.
And you said that you've seen, obviously, we've all seen worse crashes, but this looks like minimal damage in your estimation for this type of an aviation accident. Survivable, would you say? Would you go that far?
I would say eminently survivable, but I don't know who was on the aircraft. That sort of depends on the health condition of people on the aircraft, age, that sort of thing. But immediately, this looks survivable to me.
And Jim, stick with us here. We've just gotten a statement from the FAA. We now know exactly what type of plane this is. A single-engine Cicada TBM 700 that crashed while landing at RDU International Airport around 10:15 this morning. 2 people on board, and the FAA and the National Transportation Safety Board will investigate. So Jim, are you familiar with the Cicada TBM 700 plane? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a single engine, generally executive type transport aircraft, although it does have some slight cargo capabilities. It was a result of a joint venture between Mooney Aircraft of Kerrville, Texas, and Cicada, and it's been very popular. It's very well respected aircraft as far as I know. Very efficient, very fast. On this particular model, which was the earliest of the models, there have been several other models since then, which have resulted in increased engine performance and increased cargo and passenger capability. There have been 60 events worldwide with this particular, the TBM 700, with 64 fatalities. I don't gather anything or have any significance in those numbers. Those are just the facts. But I do not know that this is a difficult aircraft to fly, nor is it a hazardous or dangerous aircraft in any way. It's fairly well respected.
Well respected, fairly popular to fly, and you talked about 60 events, 64 fatalities. Can you put that into perspective for us as far as a safety record for this plane?
I don't know the number of aircraft produced, and I don't know the number of hours on those aircraft of that model, but those numbers do not strike me as terribly significant one way or the other at this point.
Okay, perhaps not significantly high or showing any kind of pattern of problems, in other words.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Jim, UNC Health Medical registered to this plane takes this 5 to 7 times a day to various places. In this particular incident, had a doctor and a pilot on board. And when you say transporting executives, I mean, that's exactly what you mean. They're taking doctors to make house calls with an airplane.
Yeah, executives or personnel. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Medical Air Inc. is a nonprofit air company based out of Morrisville, although it does have some association apparently with UNC. But my understanding is that this aircraft is generally used for personnel transport. It only seats a total of 6, including crew, 4 to 6. So it's not a passenger aircraft per se. It's more, when I say executive, meaning 1, 2, 3 people being transported with crew.
Jim Krause, aviation expert here, providing some incredible insight into this crash and some of the history of that plane, what it's used for. And we really appreciate your time and being able to bring us a little closer to exactly what may have happened here. And we thank you for your time very much.
Glad to be of help.
Jim, thank you. Yeah, the very interesting takeaway from our aviation expert as he was looking at that wreckage and at the debris, that it is in his best estimation that it appears the plane was able to land, but then had some kind of difficulty that resulted in this crash there on that airfield.
Yeah, not a straight down vertical, but a sort of a horizontal and a hard hit and maybe a bounce.
That there could be any number of problems with a tire blown out or rotor or engine. That will be left up to the NTSB to investigate. But from his interview there, as we spoke with him, it does not appear that perhaps the pilot had some kind of emergency while in the air or mid-flight and resulting in this, but rather coming from Wilmington International Airport and then landing there at RDU and then resulting in this damage. Earlier on our live coverage, Monica Casey had talked with some airport employees out there, and we want to hear what this one worker had to say as he was surprised to learn that this has happened and how eerily quiet it is out there.
I didn't see anything. I'd seen the aftermath like you guys, but I was letting her know that basically our routine schedule of the plane the routine schedule was off. Basically, I looked on my phone because I have an app to tell when the flights are coming in, and basically it said that it was delayed. And then come to find out, this is why it's delayed.
Certainly nothing normal when you hear that description of what caused the delay. Now we're seeing exactly what it was. As you take a live look, Sky 5 is up over the airport, which is also a good sign as far as the rest of air travel around the airport.
Yeah, passengers have been waiting for about an hour and a half here to hear what's going on, and we are learning from our crews that it appears things are slowly getting back to normal at RDU and that flights are starting to board and to get ready to take off. We are also hearing from RDU they're going to hold a briefing with reporters here in about 25 minutes. That will be happening at 12:15. We will take that live here on our new newscast as this comes up with team coverage from all reporters, Monica, Sean, Michelle McConaughey in the live center, and also Ken Smith watching traffic.
The RDU International Airport Authority will be having that briefing right around the 12:15 area, like you said, and some of the mutual aid partners, you have to believe, will be lending their assistance not only there, but also giving us an update as to what they went through from the time this plane officially 10:08 is what its flight pattern says it landed, and that's the result of that landing right there. A hard hit, according to our aviation expert right there. 2 people on board taken to the hospital, a UNC doctor, as well as the pilot of that plane. So we'll be getting a lot of updates here during our noon newscast right about 12:15.
And the FAA talking about the specific brand of this plane, a single-engine Cicada TBM 700 that crashed while landing at RDU International Airport. That was around 10:15 this morning. And the 2 people on board, we've learned with UNC Health, a physician and a pilot that is part of a service that provides daily flights, about 5 to 7 flights a day, providing medical services to and from different areas, left RDU, flew out to Wilmington, and then from Wilmington back out to RDU this morning, and resulting in this crash.
Yeah, this is not a big transport plane as far as people. It's to basically to shuttle executives get them to one place or another very quickly. It's a fast plane. There's not a lot of cargo space on it. There's limited capacity for that, but just some of the small details there and tracking some of the history. Jim Krause, our aviation expert, was pretty quick to pull up some of those numbers there. About one fatality attributed per crash, 64 people killed in 60 crashes over the years with this type of plane. But
and he did mention that those numbers, as trying to put in perspective, it doesn't point to any particular safety concerns with this plane. This is a well-respected plane that's also often flown and used without any issues, but with that executive transport plane with UNC Health.
Well-traveled, high usage as well with those 5 to 7 flights per day. We have crews all around the airport in Terminal 2 talking with some of the passengers there. Flight disruptions for about the last hour and a half or so. Getting back to normal, though. We understand that some folks are seeing their planes taking off. But there are dozens of delays right now while they wait to catch up from this ground stall that they've had so far.
And Jeff, a lot of those flights that were supposed to come into RDU from 10:15 to this time now as we approach noon there had to be diverted to other airports. So hopefully those airports are getting word that soon they will be cleared to fly into RDU so those passengers can get to their destination. But this is the single-engine Cicada TBM 700 there in that field. It has a UNC logo on the tail, and we've learned it is affiliated with UNC Health. A physician and pilot that were on board, and those two have been taken to the hospital. We don't know about their injuries. A spokesperson with UNC Health saying they are working to find out their conditions, but they have been transported to the hospital.
And while flight operations get back to normal, relatively speaking, here until they catch up with all their delays at RDU International Terminal 1, Terminal 2, both, some of those inbound flights, if you had a loved one coming in on a plane that was scheduled for late morning, early afternoon here at RDU, be sure to check with it. We had one of our reporters, Carly Haynes, was coming in from New York, got diverted to Richmond. So potentially she's waiting in Richmond for things to clear up here before they can bring that plane on down here. So possibly folks at home have a similar situation going on.
Definitely a domino effect with those flights. All those flights were delayed. We didn't hear about any cancellations as RDU tries to get back on track here with flight operations and opening up those runways and getting those planes to take off at 12:15. So stay with us. We will also take you live out to RDU where RDU officials will be holding a presser for this. As we have team coverage for you, we'll check in with Monica, Sean, Michelle McConaughey, and Ken Smith here as we begin our noon news. So stay with us.